結構ね、狭いステージ、cairns bag. Good stadium. 人気なのは、天気がちょっとよくわかんないけど、そのキュランダ、明日行ってキュランダのさらに奥の方に高原が広がってて、そこで結構ね、ケアンズがあるのも、晴天率が年間300日ぐらいが入ってる高原の方まで夜行くと、街から離れてるんで、真っ暗で、星がめちゃめちゃ綺麗です。あ、夜行く。おー、いいね、いいね。キュランダから。最高じゃないですか。ありがとうございます。そうですね。雨降ることも当然あるんですけど、やっぱああいう風に山で囲まれてるんで、ここです。はい。溜まってるんですけど、こういうプリントとかそういうのがあって、何もこうないんですけど、風がね結構いいですから。降ったりすることもあるけど、どんどん風がもう流してくれる。
choices after that. We can either just sit on the boat and wait till we get rescued by another vessel. Or if you've got your life jackets on correctly and you're impatient, you can swim back to the jetty. If you're going to fall off the boat for some reason, make sure one of the orange life rings are following you. One up the bow, one here beside me. So if you see someone falling off, make sure one of those is following them. But also be aware it's not a game of points. You don't need to get it over their head. Get hit in the head with one of these things, it'll just about knock you out. So, nearest the pin, get it as near as possible to them, so they can then grab hold of it, they can then drag them back, and you grasp one way. No, that's a safety briefing over and done. Now what we've come out to have a look at today, there's only a very small part of the whole of the Great Barrier Reef, and give you some ideas on how large this Great Barrier Reef is. It starts right at the most northerly part of Australia, which is Cape York Peninsula. It does actually stretch over to Papua New Guinea. Then it travels 2,300 kilometres down the coast of Queensland, as far south as Bundaberg, and Lady Musgrave and Lady Alley Islands. But you can also find coral reefs off Brisbane. Go out to a reef called Moreton Reef. It's a good diving and fishing spot. If you want to go off New South Wales and go to Lord Howe Island or Norfolk Island, you'll also find coral reefs out there. And around Tasmania, you'll find cooler water corals. And it covers an area about the size of Great Britain, or Japan, or Italy, and that's 350,000 square kilometres. And it's not one continuous reef. It's actually made up of over 2,900 reefs, 900 islands. Green Island being one of those 900 islands. So some fairly large numbers there, would you agree?
Yes.
But the most amazing thing about the whole Great Barrier Reef is the main engineer, the main builder of it all, is a little creature so small you actually need a microscope to see one of them, and they're called coral polyps. Now I don't have a microscope out here to show you one, so the easiest way for me to describe one to you is to get you to grab a bit of imagination and imagine we're looking through a microscope at a coral polyp. What you'd be looking at would be a teacup with an upside down jellyfish. It has stinging tentacles. It actually belongs to the same family as jellyfish and sea anemones because of those stinging tentacles. But it only derives between 10 to 20% of its food from the use of those tentacles, which it only uses at night time to capture any microscopic food that passes by them or through them. Where they get 80 to 90% of their food from. It's also the same thing that gives them their colours, and that's called algae. In particular, Susan Thulley algae. And there's the different varieties of the Susan Thulley algae family. They give you the different shades of colour. Now, if you've come out today expecting to see bright coloured coral, obviously your reference point's been a photograph or a video. Unfortunately, you've been hoodwinked. Those photographs and videos, they're taken with cameras with huge big strobe lights on them. The stronger and the closer the light source of the coral, the more colour you get to see, and that works off a process called photosynthesis. Now if you don't know what that is, it has to do with that big yellow globe up in the sky, the sun. It shines down on plants and trees, that's where they get their colours from, and algae, being a plant, is how it gets its colours. Now to give you a better idea what I'm talking about there, again I'm going to get you to use your imagination and imagine we're all diving together 5 metres below the surface. All the corals would all look the same until I grabbed my dive torch out, shot it onto the coral, that's when we'd see some colour. But while we're diving at 5 metres, I was to accidentally cut myself, I wouldn't actually bleed red, I'd bleed a browny sort of colour until I came within a metre on the surface, and then my blood would change to red. And your last colours to go are blues and purples, and that's at 3 metres. Now the reason why, well, water's a lot denser than air, so the sun can only penetrate so far into the water, and the first colours to go on the colour spectrum are your reds at 1 metre. Does everyone understand all that? Yeah. So basically the next time you look at a photographs or video of the coral, it all looks bright, well, you now know it's been taken with artificial light. When it's been taken with natural light, the sun, its true colours are pastels. About the brightest coral you'll see out here will be a blue staghorn. And it's not because it's bright, it just stands out because of how deep blue it is. Now all the corals have a name. There's a big long scientific Latin name that took me all to the Glass 108 trip, just trying to pronounce one of them. This one. I'm about to tell you all about that in a second. So, they all have that big scientific Latin name. So what we do is we name them by what they appear to look like. So, you see stuff that looks like this. Deer antlers, that's called staghorn. Small, round, flat ones, they're called plates. Larger varieties of those, they're called tablecloth. Now they're the fastest growing corals on the reef. They grow up to this much a year, about 15 centimetres. Then you've got ones that look like a rock. Well, that's the boulder coral. One that looks like a brain, well, that'll be the brain coral. Honeycomb corals, they only grow this much a year. So some are fast growing, some are slow growing, some are fast growing corals. Obviously the faster you grow, the more fragile you are. The slower you grow, the more dense and solid. And it's generally your boulder corals are your foundation corals. Once they've established themselves and got large enough, then other corals attach to them, and that's how a new reef starts. Now there's over 400 different varieties of coral on the Great Barrier Reef, and they fit into 3 categories. You've got your soft corals, lovely the ones that are moving around. The most predominant one you'll find out on the Great Barrier Reef and around green is spaghetti coral. That's a brown soft coral that's moving around in the current. Another soft coral is cabbage. Surprisingly enough, it looks just like a cabbage, even green, though there are blue varieties of them. Broccoli coral is another soft coral, but instead of being an emerald green, it's actually a lime green. That's just a few soft corals. Then the hard corals, the second varieties are your hard corals, and they're the ones I've already mentioned. The plate, the table, the staghorn, the brain, the boulder, and the honeycomb. There's just a few of your hard corals. And then the third varieties of coral are your gorgonians, which are your whip and fan corals. Nice big coral. Now, the 2 types of gorgonians are your whip and fans. Now, you'll only find whipped corals around Green Island. While you're travelling around with cars on a boat and snorkeling around, you see something hanging off the coral, looks like a piece of rope. Well, that's the whip coral, as in whip. The other varieties of gorgonians are your fan corals. So they're found right on the very outer edge of the Great Barrier Reef, or on the outside of a coral bommy. Has anyone ever heard the word bommy? Used in any conversations before? Who said yes? So you obviously go out fishing a fair bit, do you? Oh, maybe on YouTube, okay. The word bommy is actually describing a coral outcrop, a collection of corals that have grown towards the surface. And the word's actually been derived from an Aboriginal word. The Aboriginal word for that coral formation is bombora. And in the indigenous language it simply means big rock underwater with waves crashing over the top of it. Us Aussies, well, we love to shorten everything. So bombora became bommy. And that's describing that coral outcrop or a collection of rocks that have formed a reef. They have lots of nooks and crannies, because that's where the fish hide away from fisher people. So some of those, just in the middle there, you'll see some of those spaghetti corals just being somewhere. Now, how many Aussies have I got on board here? A few Aussies? Right, you guys heard about crown-of-thorn starfish? For those who haven't heard about them, the crown-of-thorn starfish is a predator of coral polyps. Now, for those people who have heard about them, contrary to what you may have heard, they're not introduced. They're actually supposed to be here. And they're actually found on reef systems right around the world. Just here in Queensland, Australia, us humans have created the problem here. And the reason why, a few different ways. One, all these extra nutrients and fertilisers that are running off the mainland, and that's creating more food for the juveniles. Of course, the more food you have for the juveniles, the more of them survive to become adults. And of course, when you have too many adults, that's when we have our plagues on. Another problem is overfishing of crabs, a couple of species of fish. Now they actually predate on the larvae and on the juveniles. Then by the time we find them out on the reef, they're about this big, about the size of a soccer ball. Though they can grow up to 1 metre in diameter, have up to 21 legs, and big thorns about the size of my finger all over them. What they call the crown of thorns. And if you try to pick one up with your bare hands, one of those thorns punches your skin, is going to poison your hand up. Now out of the reef, another overfishing, coral trout. Again, it's like triton sharks, big sea sharks. So they're predators of the adult ones. So of course, you take all the predators out of the equation, you add in a lot more food than what it's used to. That's why we have our plagues on. Now fortunately now here in Queensland, we have a COTS program, a crown of thorn starfish program, and they'll go diving on a reef. They're actually out here about 10 weeks ago and only here for the afternoon. So what they'll do is they'll go diving on the reef, they see too many crown of thorn starfish, they go down and inject them with either a bleach or a vinegar, and that's to kill them off. And what they want to do is bring their numbers down to a sustainable level. The reef is supposed to have a few on it, not a few hundred, or as was the case out here years ago, thousands all along that area I've just been travelling over. Now, I used to work out here between 1997 and 2009. I saw 2 plagues come through this area in that time, and 2009 went off and did other stuff. I've been back out here since just before Christmas. Now, so much so I never used to take people out there to do coral viewing tours years ago because there was nothing to show you, it was all dead meat. Now, since I've been back out here the last 8 months, I noticed everyone was coming out here to do their coral viewing tours, and I thought to myself at the time, why are you guys going out there for? Nothing to show, it's all dead meat. And that's what I remember from 12, 13 years ago. So on a quiet day I come out to see why they were going out there. That's when I was very happy and surprised to see all that new growth. You'll notice, I'll get to you in a second, mate. You'll notice around the edges of those plates and tables, how slightly different colour around the edges of them. And if you notice the staghorns and tips, different colour, because that's all new growth, all new. Yes, mate? How can you tell? Dead coral, this one's a dead coral, got no colour to it. White, of course, it's still alive, but it's only because it's been bleached. Now, it can be bleached. Who's heard about that? It has to do with the water temperature, obviously. Now, the water temperatures the corals prefer to live in is between 21 and 30 degrees Celsius. At the moment, it's about 25. Now, once it goes 1 degree above 30, the coral stresses. And what it does, it ejects all the algae from within it, and all the coral goes white, which is where the expression coral bleaching comes from. Now, it can survive in that state for a period of time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. As I said at the beginning of my chapter, that's tentacles. We can still provide some food during that time, but if it goes beyond that time period, yes, the coral will die. Because other than eating the algae for its colour, that's its 80 to 90% of its food source. It's where it gets all its sugars and its carbohydrates from that symbiotic relationship between the coral polyp and the algae. Maybe I should have had you down the end here with me, mate. Yeah. Very hard to hear you with the wind in the ear and the engines. Wait, yes, mate? Yeah, I'm up. Yeah, you. I'm going to need your hand up a second ago. Can't hear you, mate. Oh, sharks? You get reef sharks, black tip reef sharks. You won't see the white tips during the day, only at night time. Leopard shark. You've also seen a tawny nurse shark out here. All totally harmless. If you happen to see one while you're sliding around, don't do what some person did not long ago. Panic that much on the ground. big reef shark swam past him, just in the shallows right next to the jetty. The thing is, he could have stood up. So you don't panic. The only way that one of those sharks will hurt you is if you're stupid enough to grab it. They're actually more scared of you than you are of them. Yeah, lots of turtles. But again, turtles, yeah, this ain't Disneyland. You know, where things pop up in the same place at the same time every day. But a few years ago, they did a turtle count around the island of 140. So giving you a bit of predation, natural and all that. So we've still got well and truly over 100 turtles around the island. If you want to go swimming with one, not that I can promise anything, but have a look down towards the island. As you're walking down the jetty later on, you'll see off your left all those white buoys. That area's been roped off, so no boats can go in there. Lots of seagrass, and generally a turtle, at least one, if not more. So let's go swimming around there. You're not going to see much coral. There is a bit. You come right out to the very corner, but it's mainly I'm sending you there to maybe swim in the turtle. I was only telling the story on the last trip. Waiting for the 4:30 boat and everyone's lined up along the jetty there. Tell me they are now. A few people complained they hadn't seen any turtles for the day. And then 4 popped up right next to the shed. So there you go. There you've got 4 of them. And they were both green and hawksbill turtles. So you got to see 2 times. There you go. Fish feeding. Ready?
He's going to feed some fish through them.
So if you want to take photographs of this, put your cameras out to the outside of the boat. So those silver ones are really quick ones. They're called silver trevally or tea-leaf trevally. Little black spots all over their back. Looks like something with a teapot all over them. Now spangled emperors are a sandy coloured fish. They've got a blue fleck running through their scales.
Reuben, look this side, buddy. Look.
These big round flat-looking ones I've got underneath me at the moment, they're called bat fish. As in Batman and Robin. Now, all your reef fish breed up in the mangroves, and the batfish, surprisingly enough, are born about the same time mangroves are dropping brown leaves in the water. Because when the batfish are born, they're actually born brown. Plus, they swim on their side in amongst the leaf debris, act as camouflage. And then once they're big enough, and then change colour and swim out to the wreck. Now, I can't hang around too much, I just realised. Now the black and white strawberry ones we saw as we turned up are called sergeant majors. They're a damsel fish. They're actually the largest of the damsels. The reason they're called surgeon fish, we're actually to see them side on, where the tail meets the body, and that's a horizontal barb. That's actually as sharp as a surgeon's scalpel, and it's used as a defence mechanism. A big predatory fish, going to come and grab that surgeon fish by the tail with those razor sharp barbs, that's going to come. I'm going to start cruising back now. Now, at the beginning of my chat, I talked about how big the Great Barrier Reef is, and I'll have a bit of a chat about how old it is. say it's roughly around 15,000 years old, but the coral has actually been dated at 8 million years old. So you may be thinking to yourself, how does 15,000 and 8 million go together? Who's heard of Pangea or Gondwana land? For those who don't know what I'm talking about, 140 million years ago, it was all one supercontinent called Gondwana land, or Pangea, and it all started to break apart to form the continents we now know. If you actually have a look at a map of the world, you see how South America basically fits into Africa. Now at that same time, Australia and Antarctica were still joined together, travelled right down the very bottom of the world, and then 30 million years ago, Australia broke loose, started travelling northwards at 6 to 7 centimetres a year, which it's still doing now. Every 20 years, Australia moves northwards 1.5 metres, about 5 feet every 20 years. And since Captain Cook was here, it's actually moved northwards about 18 metres. So keeping that in mind that it's slowly moving northwards, so 8 million years ago, that's when the northern part of Australia hit the tropical waters, and that's when the coral started to grow. And as it slowly keeps moving northwards, that's why the Great Barrier Reef has grown down the side of Australia, the continental shelf. I like to have a bit of a joke that in a few thousand years' time, people living in Brisbane and Sydney might need to come all the way up here to see the Great Barrier Reef, because they're shipping pretty close to their back door by that time. It won't happen in our lifetime, but it will happen. It's called continental drift. Has anyone heard that expression before? If you haven't, well, I say yeah. Green Island's named after Charles Green, astronomer on board the Endeavour with Captain Cook. When they first left England in 1769, their first mission was to actually sail around Tahiti and chart the planet Venus as it transit across the skies. The gentleman on board to do that, Charles Green, astronomer on board the Endeavour.